Can everyone see my screen here, the SQL basics?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, good. As I promised in the last call, I'm going to do very little PowerPoint. I still have some, but even less than last time. All right, so this is week 2. For those of you who weren't here last week, I am planning to record every single one of these sessions, for good or ill. I might re-record some of them if I do a really horrible job, but I plan to record all of these and post them and share them in some way or another. So you can always go back and look at ones that you haven't seen before, or even go back for a refresher. What I'm planning to do today, we're going to still try to stick to about an hour, but if we go further, that's fine, and people have to drop off, that's fine, because again, I'm recording this. But we'll discuss last week's homework a bit. I might not go into it in too much detail, but if anyone has any specific questions, we'll go into that. I actually have answers to every homework question I assigned that I can share with folks. I trust everyone here. We're not grading you, so there's no reason to cheat, but I will share my homework answers so you guys can study and compare it to your own. Some of the, I like the site that I gave you all for homework just because it's a nice sort of interactive place to play with SQL queries without having to necessarily get database access, in case that's a challenge for some of you. But I know some of the questions were sort of obtusely worded. They're slightly geared towards MySQL, whereas, DCS is mostly comprised of SQL Server-based organization-based campuses. So some differences here and there that I can go over. So we'll discuss that a bit. I'm going to talk a bit about null versus blank versus zero, and I'm actually going to, I sort of dithered back and forth on this and changed my mind several times in preparation for this class, whether I was going to talk about data types, numbers, dates, text, stuff like that, before I talked about nulls, or nulls before I talked about data types, and there are good and bad reasons for both. And that's part of this theme that you guys will find maybe, and some of you maybe even found during the homework, is that these things sort of depend on each other. So I might talk about a thing, a concept that doesn't necessarily make sense until I talk about another concept that's sort of dependent on that first concept. So, I'm going to re-go over things from time to time, just because this all sorts of fits together and can be somewhat challenging to learn about in a linear way. We are going to hopefully get to the case statement in this class, and then finally maybe get into subselects if we have time. What I'm doing here is, we talked about this last week, where a database, a relational database, the databases that we're going to be talking about, are a collection of tables, and tables that are related to each other in some way. Last week and this week, we're pretty much talking exclusively about single table selects, and there's a lot to cover there. But what I'm gearing up for in this course and in the last course is to get into our multi-table selects. That is, selecting and getting data from not just one table, like the students table, but multiple tables like the addresses table, the courses table, the registrations table, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm gearing up to that. For those of you who are excited about the relational part of relational database querying, we will get there soon. All right, so the schedule, this is tentative, except for the things that are crossed out. Those are definite. We already did 7:13 last week. We're doing 7:20 today. Next week, I'm going to be on site at a client site, and it's going to be a pretty impacted week, so I'm just going to not do that, give you all a break. We'll start again on 8:3. 8:10 is my birthday, and I'm going to be out on the ocean somewhere in a kayak, hopefully for all of that. So I won't be giving a class that day. And then we'll do 8:17, 8:24, 8:31 if all goes well. I will cancel things well in advance if we have to get to that. And then we'd have 2 more classes after that. But this is just for now, plan not to come to class on the 27th next week or the 10th. And there we go. Time to stop with this PowerPoint. Okay. And can you all see my SQL Management Studio page? Yes.
Yes.
And is it relatively big enough? Sometimes a struggle. All right, good. So what we're going to talk about first is nulls and blank data. So I'll tell you about this for now, and then we'll start getting into the queries. And this is somewhat difficult to talk about, but I'm going to say it in numerous ways. And if anyone on the call has a good way of explaining it, that's great. So sometimes a column in a table contains no data. And no data, aka null, is distinct from empty or zero or something like that. So for example, if we had like a table of employees and their salaries, if somebody neglected to share their salary or chose not to, that data wouldn't be stored in the salary, and that data of I'm not reporting my salary would be distinct from something like my salary is $0 a year. If you asked me how many cows I owned, I would say 0. But if we had a collection of people and said how many cows does each of these people own, well, we'd say probably 0 for just about all of them if they live in the city like me. But we couldn't really assume. So unless someone really reports it, I can definitively say that I own 0 cows. But I don't know how many cows Sandy has. So until she tells me, I'm going to say that Sandy has null cows, not 0 cows, probably 0 cows. But I'm going to say null because I don't know, and Sandy hasn't told me yet. That's a weird way to put it. But let's take our students table again. So I'm going to say select star from students. And you can see already, actually, I've got several students here. And first names and last names are generally filled in. Student IDs are filled in. But you can see here that in some cases I have middle names that are null, and SQL Management Studio and any other sort of SQL querying tool is going to probably be nice and color code these nulls from you and show that they are distinct from blank. So just to put a somewhat finer point on it, if I say select star from students where middle name equals blank, I'm going to get all of these blank middle names here, but no null middle names. And the syntax is sort of different. If I want to say, let's get everyone whose middle name is null, that is not blank but not filled in, instead of equals, like I have here, I'm going to say is null. And this gives me everyone whose middle name is null. Not blank at all, but null. And I could even say something like where middle name is null or middle name equals blank. And so I have a very distinct set. And so presumably, I can't say I know the mind of the creator of this database, but presumably null means it just hasn't been reported. I can't say that this person has a blank middle name or a middle name. All I just know is that they haven't given it to us. Whereas these people, perhaps I can say these people actually don't have middle names. So it's a slight difference, and the different databases that you work with in your career might have different philosophies about where they put blank strings and where they put null, etc. This class isn't really about why one would do one or the other necessarily. more that this is something that you are going to encounter in your day-to-day life. So if I, on the same token, I can say select star from students where middle name is null, I can also say where middle name is not null. And so as you can see, even these blank strings show up. So there's a difference there between null and blank. Does that all make sense? Anyone have any questions about that? No, good. All right. We were a chatty group last week, so I sort of anticipated that again, but that's fine. And, you know, I dove right into this null versus blank versus zero sort of explanation. Before I go any further, did anyone do the homework and have questions about the homework? Completely forgot that I was doing that first. No, all right, we'll get to that. What I'm going to do is what I said last week, but you all somehow knew that I didn't quite mean it, was that I wanted you to complete that homework that I sent last week in time for this class, but it doesn't matter. I'm continuing to post that at the end of my presentations. I'd like you to go back when you have some time. I know none of us have that much free time, but I'd like you to go back when you have some time and start looking through that and doing that and bringing questions in. The important thing about the homework, in my mind, is that it covers what I covered in class. It covers a little bit more than what I covered in class as well to sort of stretch you, and it's sort of we'll see if I can keep pulling this off, but it sort of anticipates the following class. So the homework, as I'm trying to choose it, sort of bridges the gap from class to class, if that makes sense. So, yeah, Joanne?
Yeah, I was going to say, I did actually, not so much a question, but the very last exercise,
oh, sure.
I didn't realize that you could put
was that in
like
Nobel
cases,
or World?
Nobel.
Okay.
That you could actually put things like case statements in the order by.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know if you wanted.
That is exactly right. Yeah. So I'm going to get. This is great. So these are sort of. I sort of liked this that. My classes, sort of what they cover is the pre-difficult exercises. So it's just like you, Joanne, to get right into the difficult ones. Good job. But then the difficult ones sort of stretch and sometimes go a little bit beyond what my classes are. And so the case is a case in point where I'm planning to cover that in this class. So this homework gave you sort of a sneak preview of case. And that's a very good point. So we'll see what case is and means later in this class, hopefully. This is a cute, I was actually not even going to cover case in an order by statement, but we'll get to that. Absolutely get to that. So thanks, Joanne. That's good. So no more questions about the homework. That is fine. So I've covered null, and I'm going to use this as a way to transition into discussion about data types in general. So there are all sorts of words for data types in SQL land, and they're often different from SQL implementation to SQL implementation. We have like integer, we have numeric, we have long, like a long integer. No, we don't, not in SQL, not in Microsoft SQL. We have things like, text of certain sizes, dates of certain sizes, all of that sort of thing. But in essence, what we have, and what I'm going to cover today, in the broadest of terms are we have numbers, we have text, and we have dates. Actually, I'm going to cover it in this order. We have numbers, we have dates, and we have text. And you can see that here. And the names for them might change from database system to database system, and we can get into those details later. But conceptually, this is the stuff that you're going to deal with 95% of the time, if not more, in your day-to-day database work. So as you can see, student ID is a number of sorts. First name, middle name, last name is text, and date of birth is a date. This is actually kind of a date time. A lot of date times, like a timestamp, might have the actual date, year, month, day, and then time. But again, this is a date or date time. That means date times. Slightly different. But one thing you'll notice is that, let's do our middle name. Let's just get rid of that. Order by middle name. Order by. One thing you'll notice is that I can have null in my text fields, and I can have null in my date fields. And you don't see this, but I can have null in my number fields as well. So null, the other difference between like null for text, null versus blank, is that null sort of transcends our data types. So null can be in a number field. Null can be in a text field. Null can be in a date field. And really all it means is we don't have that data. Not that it doesn't exist somewhere in the world. Like Dwight Carpenter here surely has a date of birth. We just don't know it. So what can you do? Let's get out of here. What can you do with numbers? You can do some math. And for those of you who took a crack at that homework, homework was actually a little bit math heavy. But there's some pretty easy math sometimes. And in fact, when I need to add something up really quick and I happen to be in here, which I am just about every day, all day, I might occasionally add numbers together. So if I say forget what 1 plus 2 plus 3 is, for example, there we go. I've got some math. I just mathed it. I can do multiplication here. 2 times 3 plus 4. 2 times 3 plus 4 is 10. And this follows the same old precedence rules of multiplication, division, addition, subtraction first. So when I do select 2 times 3 plus 4, 2 times 3 are adding first, and then that gets 6, and then plus 4 is 10. If I wanted to make sure that this part of the equation got it, let's say select 2 times 3 plus 4 should be, anyone? 14. If any of you are on Facebook or social media, you've probably seen a lot of these little, how many people can get this answer right, or several things where there's sort of operational precedence rules are in effect. But again, you're going to use this sort of thing a lot. I can do division. 100 times 50, 100 divided by 50, sorry, is 2. And then we get to the fun stuff where I say select 100 divided by 80, and that gets me 1. Well, that's not really right. The result of 100 divided by 80 is fractional, but SQL Server sees both of these as integers. And if you divide an integer by an integer in this context, it returns an integer. What I can do is I could put a dot after one or both or either of these. And there I go. Now SQL Server says, oh, one of those is a floating point value, a decimal value, something like that. Let's make sure our result is a floating point value. So this sort of thing, especially in like financial reporting, stuff like that, you want to make sure that you're working with decimals rather than integers. And in SQL Server parlance, that is int versus numeric. And then one thing, and again, this isn't something necessarily to remember, but just know that if I want to explicitly convert something to a certain data type, I can do that within certain parameters. So this gives me 1.25 and then 4 zeros at the end. Perhaps I just want 1 zero or no zeros at the end. I can do this thing called cast. And we're going to come back to cast a lot. This is a new item of syntax. I don't want to breeze over this, but things like cast and convert let us change things like change numbers to text or change integers to decimals, stuff like that. If I do this, numeric, and so what I give is a precision and a scale. This is sort of weird, and I tend to have to Google this every time. So 16 is the precision, and that's the maximum number of digits on either side of the decimal place this can hold. And then the second place is scale, and that is the maximum number of decimal places I can have on the right. If I said 16 and 2, I would get 2 decimal places. If I did 3 and 2, I should still get that because 3 is the maximum number of digits I can have here. And then 2 is the maximum I can have on the right of the decimal place. But if I change this precision to 2, I would get something bad. If I change this to 1, you see, when I had it as 2, I got 1.25. But once I changed it to 1, it sort of implicitly rounded up to 1.3. And so you'll see that a lot. And I'm not going to go over every little nuance of this because, I mentioned in the first class that I wanted to capture the joy of first learning SQL, and I'm doing the exact opposite now. But what I really want you guys to do is know that this sort of stuff exists, and you can play with this. So that's mercifully all we're going to do on numbers for now. Now I'm going to play with dates. So you saw in students that I had some birth dates here, DOB, and these funny numbers at the end are placeholders for hour, minute, second, and millisecond. So that doesn't really make too much sense for date of birth. Usually we don't care what time someone was born. Sometimes we do, I guess. But we can also do select. This is a new item of syntax, so be aware. Get date. There are other ways to do this, but this is my favorite way to do it. Get date. I want the date. Get date gets me year, month, day, hour, minute, second, millisecond. And if I keep running this, look at this. This is 10:29. Now 10:29 and 19 seconds, 10:29 and 22 seconds. I could do this forever. I could just do this for the rest of our class. Granted, full disclosure, I'm on the West Coast. So if this disagrees with some of your watches, it should only buy 1 to 3 hours. But what if I want to do more than just look at the date? If I want to do more stuff, well, what I can do, and again, I'm going sort of quickly through these syntax items, but this is more about you knowing that this exists so that when problems like this come up for you, you'll say, okay, I remember in the class there was some solution for this, and you can go back to it, or you can email me or the group, or you can Google it. Google, how do I get this date to look different? What I'm going to do, convert, I don't know why I wrote context, convert varchar 50. Remember how earlier I said everything's basically just a number, text, and a date, but they might have different funny names? Well, varchar is one of those funny names for text. I'm going to convert today's date to text, and I'm going to use this magic code that has no intrinsic meaning, but means something to SQL Server. I'm going to select enter, and look at that. I have converted the date from this sort of obtuse-looking date to something that's a little more presentable. July 20th, 2016, 10:31 a.m. I've got a bunch of these. I can say convert varchar get date 101, and that converts this to something sort of similar. And there are various date formats here. I'm going to show you just a quick bunch of them, and this isn't even all of them. I have various ways that I want to display my dates. And again, I did that twice. Look at that. I can even show date time. So now bringing it back to students. This DOB is kind of ugly, but if I say something like student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and then convert varchar DOB. Instead of putting get date in there, I'm going to put date of birth in there. And then let's make it format 110 from students. There we go. Our birth date looks completely different than it used to. And then just to bring it back around to one thing I covered last time is column aliases. So I've gone from DOB as an actual column name to no column name here. I can change this to pre-birth date. There we go. And from there, of course, I can bring it into Excel. And do what I want with it. And again, I know Excel also has a million choices for adjusting dates and formatting. But if you want to skip that step and just do it straight from SQL Server, you can do that. I'm going to bring it back to Excel once in a while, but I know you all have multiple options for reporting on this data. It's not just in here, but you've got Excel, you've got Argos, you've got reporting services, you've got InfoMaker, you've got all this sort of good stuff. So just occasionally bring it back to where you want to present it to, the business end of your organization, managers, etc. I'll occasionally bring it back into Excel just to show you that, just because that's the thing that we sort of all have in common as a reporting tool. All right, a couple of other things here that we can do with date. I'm going to get rid of this and go back to my select get date. And that time has gone up, of course. Let's try to extract some stuff from date. So I want to say select date part Y. And again, why it's YY, I'm not really sure, as opposed to Y or year or something like that. You actually have some options here. But basically, what date part does is say Give me part of the date and give me this part. And what this part is something that you can Google. Microsoft has documented of what is a different date part. So I'm going to show you various that I have. So I can say, give me just the year 2016. Get me the day of today. It is the 20th, right? What is the quarter of today? It is the third quarter, assuming your standard fiscal year. Let's do day of the week, for example. The fourth day of the week, okay, sure. By some calculations, it is. Let's get the day of the year. It's the 202nd day of the year. All right. Good. So, and we can, of course, get all sorts of things and just copy and paste this in. Get the weekday. We can get what the current second, the current minute is, the millisecond, even down to the nanosecond, if you want. And you're never going to use the nanosecond. But I'm just showing off here now. So I could do something where I take the student ID from my students table and I get their birth month, the name of their birth month, the day, the year, the quarter. Not just the birth month, 3, but March, the year, what quarter they were born in, what week they were born in, all of this sort of stuff. And this is sort of funny. I don't know how I did this. These things look exactly the same, DW and DOB, but I did weekday and weekday name. That was some sort of magic. I don't remember how I did that. But anyway, if you want to slice and dice in these ways, of course, you can do text operations on this. If you want, I could just grab part of this text or something like that. But the nice thing about dates as a data type, as distinct from text, is that you can do this sort of stuff with them. And you can also do things like add dates together, add days to dates. So if I said something like hit get date, I can add days to get date. It's this, yeah. Okay, so I can take today and get tomorrow. I can get today and get next year. I've gone from 2016 to 2017. I can get next month, all of this sort of stuff. So what I could do, and I actually don't know if I have this data, a way to do this, where, let's see. Lost my train of thought here, sorry. This is a dumb example. But presumably, I could get folks whose birthdays fall within a specific range, whose birth months are 10. There you go. Let's do that. Give me everyone who's born in October. And there we are. Regardless of the year, everyone here was born in October. Okay, moving along from dates, I want to do text, and this will conclude our portion of of all of the operations that you can do on numbers, dates, and text. Really quiet room. Are you guys all just paying an intense amount of attention, or am I losing it?
This is Rob. You're just so dynamic, we don't want to interrupt you.
Yes, ditto.
Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Although
it's really,
there was a question I had for you when you were showing the various date formats, pulling out the day. One of them showed the day of the week, and the other one showed something else. And you wondered how that magic happened.
Yep.
Is that something you can paste back in?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't.
I've sort of confused myself with that. Yeah. So I did select date. Oh, well, that's what I did.
Select would be good. Well, the only point I was going to make, in one of them you had date part, and the other one you had.
Yep. Thank you, Rob. I just noticed that. Date part, date name.
And then you had date name.
Yeah. You know, and I played with that. I actually put this together yesterday, and I already forgot. But thank you very much, Rob. So date part and date name. So, and I played with this yesterday. So I could do select date name, day of the week, today. I noticed that I can do this. This is kind of fun. And I thought I could be clever. So the name of today is Wednesday. So I thought, well, what's the name of this quarter that we're in? And the name of this quarter is 3. Oh, well. I thought there might be a name that like SQL Server invented for this quarter. But if I do select date name Q for quarter, get date, compare that to date part, it's both 3. Oh, well. I can't convey my disappointment that we don't have names for our quarters. I thought maybe I just discovered something new about our date system, but apparently not. Oh, well. Life is full of disappointments. So, from dates, I can move on to text. Let's go ahead and talk about what we can do with text. So, whereas before I can select just any number if I want, and I can select a number plus a number, and I can select a number plus a number times a number, divided by a number, and on and on and on. I can do something sort of similar with text. So I can say select hello. Great. I can say hello plus, comma, plus world, plus exclamation point if I want. Great. It says hello world. Now, of course, I can put all of that in the same string. Hello world. Look at that. That's not that interesting until I get my students. Select last name, first name from students. What if I want to copy this all into Excel, but I want it in a nice format where it's all merged together? Now, granted, I can do that in Excel if I want, or any other reporting tool, but I can also do it directly from here. I can say select last name plus, and let's say a comma and a space, plus first name. So when we're plussing SQL automatically knows, okay, are we working with numbers here or are we working with text? To run this, and I've got first name, comma, last name, but I've got all of these spaces. And these spaces are an artifact of Joanne Bossert's and my very favorite student information system. So now Joanne knows where I got this data from. Can you guess, Joanne?
Oh, gee, let me think about that. Just begin with J.
All right, I'm not here to trash Genzabon, but this is a thing that happens a lot, and it's just it's a feature, let's say. But if I say don't want these spaces as part of my results, I can do something, new syntax item here, called rtrim. Carrie, you'd asked about this last week. Was why are the colors changing on the words? And this is exactly right. I can't spell for nothing, especially if the words are nonsense words like rtrim. That's not even a word. So of course I'm going to get it spelled. I'm going to spell it wrong, and I'm often going to do something like rtrin or rtrime, rtrip, or something like that. And as you can see, one is I get this annoying red squiggly line that says something's wrong, but I also don't get this to change color. And I know that rtrim is a special little piece of syntax, and when it goes all mauve or whatever color that is, you know, I can see it's a nice little quick indication that I didn't type something wrong. So great. I can say rtrim last name plus, let's do rtrim first name. And there I go. This is a nice looking set of last name, comma, first. And then finally, let's bring in the middle here, plus, we do space. And this should just get us first name, last name, middle name, and it should be all nice, except some of my names went null. Does anyone have a guess why that happened?
Because the middle name was null.
Because the middle name is null. Yes. So null plus not null equals null. Select 1 plus null times 90 is what? Anyone?
No.
Who wants to guess what this is going to be? If we were in a classroom, I'd be making some pointed eye contact at somebody here.
I'm tired of answering all the questions.
Would it be null?
It's null. Add null to anything, subtract null from anything, etc. It's going to be null, no matter what. And so, yet another syntax item is I can say is null middle name and turn is null into blank. Now we got it. So all of our middle names from before are there, if they're there, or they're blank. So is null is a handy little feature where I can just immediately say, okay, if this is null, turn it into something else so that I don't have to worry about all of these nulls. And I could potentially do this in all of this because there are cases maybe where the first name is null or the last name is null. Any SIS worth its salt isn't going to allow something like that. But, you know, you never know what kind of data you're going to deal with. There's dirty data everywhere, as we all know. The other thing I could do, just as a nice little aside, is null is handy. But I could even do something like, well, I can change data here. So I can say make it blank if it's null. I can say something dumb like not specified. Or I can say Q. And I can even say something like coalesce. Actually, let me copy paste this so you can just see these together. Instead of is null says if this first thing is null, put in this last thing. Otherwise, just put in this first thing. Coalesce is slightly different. You can string all those nulls together, but coalesce is sort of nice. Where I can say coalesce says give me the first thing, give me as many arguments as you want, and I'm going to return the first thing that isn't null. So I could say if you don't have, this is a dumb example, but if you don't have a middle name, I'm going to make your first name your middle name. I'm just going to give you that middle name. And if you don't have a first name, then I'm just going to make your middle name Q. And again, you won't see much of a difference here, but in coalesce, I can have as many items in here as I want. Etc. So what this says, if middle name is null, go to first name. If first name is null, go to null. Oh, it's never going to get past this. It's always going to get past this. Null is null, then go to last name. If last name is null, go to date of birth. Date of birth is null, finally go to Q. So this is cool. Coalesce is like is null, but you can have infinite number of arguments in here. Not quite infinite, but a lot. And I got in trouble here because I've got all this text in here, and then I've got a date time that I can say. Convert my date to a bar chart. And that still doesn't work. That's because I'm probably doing something wrong. Bar chart. There we go. Again, it's a dumb example. It's going to give me the same results as this, pretty much. But that is one of the ways that you can deal with null. All right. I have got just a few minutes left. I would like to very quickly cover case statements. And my covering case statements will prep you for doing last week's homework for whoever hasn't gotten to that yet. I'd like you all to try to do it just because it's good practice, and I really want you to come to this class when with some of this sort of in your head, and with questions just sort of overflowing. So just a quick thing about case. So I showed you is null and coalesce. And that's sort of a quick example of what you can do if a value is something, turn it to something else quickly. I'm going to do just a silly one here. Select star from students. Let's make some nicknames. So let's say select student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and let's do something like a nickname. And this is going to be silly, but do something like case when first name equals Michael, then Mike. Otherwise, when first name, and I'll go over how this works once I'm done, is Sandra, then Sandy. When first name equals Joanne, then Jojo. Sorry, Joanne. Joanne's. Else, first name in. And let's say, see if that actually worked. First name in. This is a callback to last week. Michael, Sandra, Joanne. So we should have student ID, first name, middle name, last name, and then some other column. Sandy, Mike, Sandy, Jojo, Mike, Sandy. Okay, good. It works. So if you ever want to, again, there are probably much more germane examples that one could think of. And you will find, if you have access to any SQL table anywhere, that these are probably going to come up. But barring that, this is in last week's homework. So take a look at that, please. What this does, let's give this a column alias, nickname. So I'll go from no column name to nickname there. So what this does is it says, evaluates this expression first. If this happens, if first name equals Michael, then it changes this to Mike and it's done. It stops looking at that row of data. If it's not Michael, then it moves on and says, is it Sandra? Okay, it's Sandra, change it to Sandy. Otherwise, stop looking at that row. Let's go to the next row in our table, et cetera, down until the very end. I'll say else, first name, just keep the name the same, and then end. So this is a whole column right here, this case statement. We can make this as big and expansive as you want. One of the reasons I'm covering this, one of the many reasons, is this is going to come up a lot. And some of you privately told me that your interest in this class was about, you look at some reports, you look at some scripts, you don't necessarily write this stuff, but you look at it and you want to make sense of it. This case statement is so big because, again, you can put so many clauses in this case statement that's probably, in terms of weight of text, this case statement is going to make up a sizable chunk of it. And just to bring this point home, so if I say select first name, middle name, last name from students, I'm going to get, back to our original query, some middle names that exist and some null middle names. Whereas before I could say is null middle name, and this is the preferred way to do it. I just want you to see how it works in a case statement. I can change all my nulls to just blanks, but I could also say case when middle name is null, then so again, instead of saying the is null, which is a nice and convenient shorthand way to do it, I can put that in a case statement. The middle name is null, put something in there to fill its place. Otherwise, just leave the middle name as it is, run it. So in all of these case statements, we'll have an else clause. In case we don't hit any of these, we'll do some final condition, and then we also have to say end at the end of a case statement. We don't necessarily have to give it a column name here, but it's handy.
Michael,
Yes.
Patricia, what's the performance impact of some of these case statements and nested case statements? And
minimal, really.
Okay.
It's I mean, you would have to get just astronomical amounts of this to really, truly hurt the performance. It's a very good question. And I would say the only time to sort of shy away from case statements is when you don't have to use them. Like the is null is definitely preferable to the case statement, but that's really, in my opinion, just ease of reading. It's a shorthand. Once the SQL engine compiles it down, it's pretty much the same. Now, when I say nothing, I should clarify negligible. there are cases, and we might get into this later, where there are things where the SQL engine is not able to optimize this well enough. But the case statement is such an ingrained part of this that, I would say if you're worrying about performance, if you have a query that's underperforming in some way, the most common suspect is bad table joining, which we haven't covered yet, but we're going to cover. And big nested case statements are not a likely suspect. So that's it. One final piece of homework I have. I actually had more, but we didn't get to everything that I wanted, but that's fine. That's my fault too. But what I want you to do, and I'll post this up edited, but I want you to do last week's homework. I want everyone to do last week's homework. And I want you to also do this one here, this using NULL. The select within select and select blah blah select. These are about querying other queries. So far we've only been querying tables. If you want to take a look at this, please do. You are always welcome to skip ahead and ask questions. But this select within select stuff and select from select stuff, I'm going to cover this at the top of the class on Wednesday, August 3rd. The other thing, this is from before as well. Get database access if you can. I've only worked now, the only slide I've worked at so far in my short career here is University of Mary. And Clint Colbert there mentioned that he was willing to give access to the test database systems, of which they have a few. So you guys can get in there if you want to and see some real data instead of just this online tutorial stuff. And then again, form study groups. Sandy, I'm going to call you out specifically because you mentioned, helping out your colleagues at University of Tampa with some of this stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. And anywhere else, everyone on this call should know my email. So please reach out to me if it's something that I feel is worth sharing with the group. I will. You can also write to the whole group. I've written you all before, but you're welcome to write me individually or as a group. If I want to share something, I can share it anonymously, or I can share it with your permission. But we're going to start really cooking. This class and the last class was really basic stuff, and I'm going to quickly ramp up into quite difficult stuff if you've only seen it once. And I'm going to be your first time seeing it for some cases, but it's stuff that you're going to see everywhere, all over, and it bears going back to the videos, rewatching the videos, going back to the homework, redoing the homework, writing each other, asking questions, etc. Keep at this, and this will become second nature to you. Any more questions before I end the meeting?
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I actually thought of one on the homework that I didn't think to ask before.
Oh, sure.
Next to the last one on the Nobel.
Okay.
I cheated. So
okay.
I'd like to see these. Is that the one with O'Neill? No, I'm sorry. Maybe it's 12.
Yes.
That one.
Oh, both of these. These are good. Yeah. Let me do this. So I bet I know how you cheated. Let me just make sure I'm on SQL Server. Good. Okay. These are sort of different. So here's two things I can do. And I actually did this, if you noticed, really quickly when I was doing something in an example query. Select. I need to cheat here. I did all these. And okay. What they want is the year, the subject, and the winner from Nobel, where winner equals, and his name is Eugene O'Neill, right? Should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no big deal. Except, ooh, gross. What an ugly error. You know, in all this gross stuff, there is something here, and here it is, unclosed quotation mark after the character string. This is just a simple little trick. If you have to, you quote all your strings with these single quotes here, but if you need an actual literal single quote in your string, you can put another one of those in there, and that'll do it. However, I bet that one of the ways you cheated, Joanne, the way you cheated was where winner like Eugene Eugene O.
Space O, yeah.
Oh, something like that.
No, you have to put space O.
Yeah, space O. You're right. Thank you.
No, you put OC. That's still not right. You're
Still
getting
got it
there.
wrong.
No, you need another percent at the end.
No, you could do Eugene.
Actually,
I do
percent
need
needs
another
to go at the end.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, this is actually how I cheated last time. Sorry, just to make it completely complete.
There's a couple different
There you
options.
go. So percent means anything and any number of anything. So this percent actually covers, in my case, blank space O and then apostrophe. And then it ends with neo. If I wanted to account for things after neo, I'd put another percent in here. But percent handily also includes any number of anything, including nothing. I can put percent, so I can make this thing lousy with percent, and it'll still work. I did the same here. Find all the details of Peter. Select year, subject, winner from Nobel, where winner like Peter. And then I could say Berg at the end if I want, Peter something Berg. Oh, that's funny. How did I do it? Another way to do
I
it.
think it's the lowercase b, probably, right?
Might be, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be case insensitive. But, you know, they said click on here for how to enter non-ASCII characters. You know what I usually do, just because this is really funny. That's wrong. Should be getting, equals. Huh. I can name your results, but it's still saying I'm correct. Okay, well I'm going to say this is broken. But whenever I need to have a special non-alpha character, I usually just find it. Like I'll Google it. I'll be like, U with a umlaut. I know there are nice ways to do it, but I'll take it and I'll just copy it. There it is. Copy, paste it into somewhere else. And there we go. I know there are other ways to do it, but I do it rarely enough that I just copy and paste when I need to. But again, like Joanne did, you can cheat, and that is fine. But especially for these little apostrophes in the middle, a double apostrophe is what we call it, it escapes your apostrophe. So having two of these in a row signals, oh, this is a literal apostrophe here, and not something that denotes the opening and closing of the string. And there we go. All right, thank you, Joanne. All right, any more questions before I close out?
Nope.
Okay, so just a reminder, no class next week. Next class will be Wednesday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 11 Mountain. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye. Thank you.
Michael.
Bye.